Good morning, everyone. A special welcome to any visitors. It's great to have all of our catechumens and candidates with us. Last month, all the priests of the Diocese of Gary gathered together for our convocation, which takes place every 2 years. Normally, a group from the outside comes in order to present to us some new ministry or some new model of leadership. And the one that came this year is called the Amazing Parish Organization, which is dedicated to forming parishes to become healthy and thriving communities. And while they were speaking to us, one thing that they said stuck out to me more than everything else, and it is this: leadership is a decision. To lead requires that you make a decision. Because people may drift into leadership roles, but nobody drifts into leadership verbs. You have to decide to lead. And you can also decide to not lead. Either way, it's a decision. And so I've had to be conscious of the fact that as a priest, I can decide to lead with my mind set on a thriving parish community, or I can decide to not lead and back off and let the parish flounder. Either way, a decision has been made. Ideally, it will be a decision to lead the way that Jesus leads. And that's what I want to talk about today. So Advent begins next Sunday. Can you all believe it? We can finally move on to violet instead of wearing green for the last many months. If you look on the inside of your bulletin, you'll notice on page 3 that for the next few weeks, Father Bill and I will be offering a homily series based on the main themes of the Advent season. And so we'll be focusing on how Jesus models those themes, those virtues for us, and thus enables us to emulate those virtues. So the 4 themes of Advent: hope, faith, joy, and peace, so that we can show those to all around us. That's what's coming up. But what about today? What's so special about today? Today is Christ the King Sunday. Jesus is our King. And so what does a king do? Well, a king is a leader. A king has to lead, has to protect his people, and has to provide for them. We Americans haven't had a king in 250 years, so it might be a bit of a foreign concept to us. But just plug in any other leadership role that you might be in, any way that you are called to be a leader. A CEO, supervisor, a teacher, a parent, pastor, a coach, politician, a team captain, a grandparent, or even an older sibling. All of those involve some type of leadership. And they require that you lead, that you protect, and that you provide for the needs of other people, as a king does. Because simply having the position of being a leader is not enough. That doesn't necessarily purify your motives and keep the best interests of other people in mind for you. And so you have to check what your motivation is for leading others. One of my favorite authors on organizational health and leadership, his name is Patrick Lencioni. In his book, The Motive, he says that for those in leadership positions, there are basically 2 different motives that you can have. One of 2 of them. One motive for leadership is reward-based leadership. This type of leader says, leadership is going to give me fame, honor, prestige, wealth. I'll get rewarded for being in this position. I can move my way up because I've earned my way to being a leader, and now I get to reap the benefits of it. The reward-based leader asks the question, what am I going to get out of this? And so if you're not going to get much out of something, and with that mindset, what are you going to do? You're not going to make tough decisions. You're not going to hold people accountable. You're just going to back off and avoid making tough decisions and push them onto others. That's the reward-based model. Then there's the other motive for being a leader. And this, Pat Lencioni says, is the responsibility-based. These people see leadership as a burden that is put on them, as a responsibility for taking care of others and making sacrifices for them. Rather than asking the question, what am I going to get out of it? They ask the question, what are others going to get out of my leadership? Though they may have to make uncomfortable decisions, they own their decisions rather than pawning them off on other people. So those are the two motives for being a leader. Now, out of those two, reward-based or responsibility-based, which do you think is the better motive? Everybody. Okay, you all get an A. But here's the problem. That's not our default way of leading, because we're fallen human beings. Naturally, we're going to be selfish and think about ourselves first. What am I going to get out of this? And if I don't get anything out of it, I'm going to back off. So whether you're a CEO or an employer or a teacher or a priest, making sacrifices for others and not thinking about yourself first is not an easy thing. It's tough. When we're young and we want to lead, what's the normal mindset? When we're young, normally we're looking for rewards. Like, I get to be a leader. I've been selected as student body president. I get to lead and be in charge of other people. Then as we get older, you start having kids, and you're married, and you take on more responsibility. Then we realize that our life is no longer about us. When I was captain of my soccer team in high school, I can't say I totally grasped the responsibility-based motive for leadership, because I wanted rewards, I wanted recognition, and I wanted my teammates to listen to me tell them what to do. Can't say it worked all the time. But today as a priest, I would say that I'm still working on it. Because it doesn't come naturally to be totally responsibility-based in your motives. You want rewards, especially when you want to avoid pain and suffering and anything uncomfortable. You want what feels good, and you want to avoid any type of conflict and issues. To have responsibility-based motives that I have to choose to lead, remember that decision, even if I don't want to. I am not a conflict-loving person. Some people love conflict. I do not like conflict. And so I don't like to have difficult conversations and to have to hold people accountable. But if I don't put myself in those uncomfortable situations, then that means everyone else has to be uncomfortable as a result. I don't like having to repeat myself over and over and over and again and remind people of things. But as they say, in order for people to grasp a message, how many times do you have to say it? 7 times. If I don't over-communicate what we're about and what our mission as a parish is, then you'll all just come to church to receive Christ, no doubt. But we're not going to have much of a direction going forward. It has to be over-communicated over and over again. I don't like having to make major decisions that make people unhappy. Welcome to the Catholic Church, where any small change that you make is bound to receive a lot of negative response. That's why priests are often held hostage by people who don't like change. If I'm not willing to make difficult decisions for the future of the parish, then the can gets kicked down the road and the parish remains stagnant. I would prefer to get rewarded and not have to go through discomfort. But I realize that I have to take responsibility with being uncomfortable. Those are the two differences between those two styles of leadership. And so today's gospel brings us a meeting between two different men that represent those two styles of leadership. One man has been put in charge of a whole district as governor, and only one only has a few loyal followers. One of these men has all the riches and comforts he could possibly want, and the other basically has nothing. One of these men has the power to sentence criminals to death and the power to let them go. And the other man only has the power to lay down his life. I'm talking about these two men, Pontius Pilate and Jesus Christ. Pilate works according to a reward-based leadership motive. He has been promoted many times in his life, and no doubt he's looking to get promoted again, even further beyond where he is now, by his boss, the Emperor Caesar. And so when he says to the people, "I find no guilt in this man, I'm going to let him go," and the people respond to him what? If you let this man Jesus go, you are no friend of Caesar. It probably chills him to the core. Oh no, I'm not going to get rewarded. I'm not going to get promoted. And so he stopped in his tracks. And so what is his response? Bring me some water. I wash my hands of this man's blood. Not my problem, not my responsibility, not my circus, not my monkeys. This is your doing. And so what Pontius Pilate does is he relinquishes the responsibility that only he has, and he shows weak leadership. Now contrast the leadership motive of Pontius Pilate with instead the motive of Jesus as a leader. Is Jesus' leadership style reward-based or responsibility-based, everybody? Does Jesus get honor? No, he gets spat upon. Does Jesus get wealth? No, he gets stripped of everything, even of his clothing. Does Jesus get a promotion? No, he gets a cross. Jesus loses everything. While Pontius Pilate washed his hands of the responsibility and the actions of these people, he shirks his duties, while Jesus assumes responsibility for the actions of others, takes their sins upon himself, and says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Jesus' leadership motive is totally responsibility-based. As you and I look at our own leadership roles, whether you're a boss, a parent, or a coach, or a student leader, whatever it is, which motive are we going to follow? Is it the motive of Pilate or the motive of Jesus? Jesus says today, my kingdom does not belong to this world, because in this world, where leadership is seen as a reward and as an opportunity for advancement, leadership in my kingdom is totally different. It's all about responsibility, sacrifice, total ownership. And I'm going to show you what it looks like to take full responsibility for everyone else. That is Jesus' motive. Over these next few weeks, the title of our homily series in Advent is called Lead as You Are Led. Everyone who belongs to the truth, as Jesus says, listens to his voice. So when you are conscious of how Jesus has led you, how he has taken responsibility for your sins, and how he has laid down his life for you, then you're more likely to follow suit and to lead others in the same way with responsibility. Today, brothers and sisters, we are led by the King. Let's follow his lead and so lead others closer to him. Amen.